However, Jacob Rees-Mogg has hinted he will once again vote against the Prime Minister's deal following a cryptic message on Twitter. The chair of the influential European research group wrote Parliament versus the People in response to an article condemning the government's handling of the Brexit process. Historian David Starkey wrote in the Daily Mail, ruled by comfortable, smug elites. Parliament is choosing to ignore the ordinary British people as they attempt to hold power to account. This follows a turbulent week in Parliament where leading Brexiteers now fear the Prime Minister's deal is the only solution available after MPs passed a motion to prevent the UK leaving the bloc without a deal. One cabinet insider told the Sunday Times both Ian Duncan-Smith and Jacob Rees-Mogg were on the verge of backing Mrs May's withdrawal agreement during the second meaningful vote on Tuesday, before the full legal advice by Attorney General Geoffrey Cox was made public. Meanwhile, on Friday, Esther McVey, the former Work and Pensions Secretary, suggested she may also be willing to back Mrs May in the third meaningful vote. Brexit news. Theresa May is confident of winning more Eurosceptics MPs around Image PA Getty for the first time. Cracks among the powerful European research group ERG were also starting to appear, after another Whitehall insider said Mr Rees-Mogg had been bombarded all night by people saying, "Don't fold, don't fold, don't fold," in another boost for the under-fire Prime Minister. Backbench rebel Daniel Kaczynski publicly indicated he will now back the current withdrawal agreement. The Shrewsbury and Atcham MP acknowledged the Prime Minister's deal was now the only game in town. Brexit news. Jacob Rees-Mogg was on the verge of backing the withdrawal agreement. Image Getty. He said, "I am more minded to support the agreement this time. The view of an increasing number of my constituents is they want to see this get over the line, as the deadline of March 29th fast approaches." The change in tune from the Brexiteers was highlighted most by the decision by former Brexit Secretary David Davis to vote for her deal. The long-standing critic, who was forced to resign from the cabinet last year over Mrs May's stance on Europe, said he voted for the Prime Minister's bad deal because the PM does not have the power to force a no-deal outcome. Brexit news. Mrs May has warned MPs a lengthy delay is possible if deal not agreed. Image PA. Meanwhile, Mrs May has today warned MPs that if they fail to back her Brexit deal, then Brussels might insist on a lengthy delay, potentially scuppering chances of leaving the European Union altogether. The Prime Minister said, "It would be a potent symbol of Parliament's collective political failure if a delay to Brexit meant the UK was forced to take part in May's European elections almost 3 years after voting to leave." See below for live Brexit updates. 3:30 p.m. update. Jenkins vows to vote against withdrawal deal. "We voted to be free." Brexiteer Andrea Jenkins has vowed she will not back down to threats, and will vote against Theresa May's Brexit deal. The MP Morley and Outward has insisted the British people voted to be free, and not tied to EU rule. Ms. Jenkins wrote on Twitter, "I will not be voting in support of the PM's withdrawal agreement. The British spirit is to fight on and not to back down to threats. The war is not good for Britain. We deserve better not to be locked in and tied to the EU. We voted to be free, not subjugation." 2:50 p.m. update. Farage in rallying cry for MPs to reject May's Brexit deal. Respect the electorate. Nigel Farage has urged MPs to reject Theresa May's Brexit deal in the third meaningful vote this week. The former UKIP leader, who yesterday kick-started the March for Brexit in Sunderland, called on parliamentarians to hold the nerve, as many consider backing Mrs May's deal at the 11th hour. The leading Brexiteer wrote on Twitter, "I would urge all pro-Brexit MPs across the House of Commons to hold the nerve this week and do the right thing by rejecting the deal. Obey the law, respect the electorate, restore faith in politics." 2:10 p.m. update. Tory MP insists UK must leave on March 29. Britain should not seek an extension to Article 50 and prolong its membership with the European Union, as the UK continued uncertainty would be devastating for business, according to Tory MP John Redwood. The MP For Wokingham insists leaving the EU on March 29 remains the best course of action for both sides, as it would set the ball running in order to strike a free trade agreement with Brussels. Mr. Redwood wrote on Twitter, "I see no reason for a delay in Brexit. The EU has always said we can't negotiate a trade deal with them until we've left. That is why the best course of action for both sides is for the UK to leave on the 29th of March, but both to immediately enter serious talks about a free trade deal. Read more here. Brexit farce. Redwood insists UK must leave on March 29 for this reason. Brexit news. John Redwood has warned against an extension to Article 50. Image Getty. 1:20 p.m. Update. Rees-Mogg in shock hint he'll reject May's deal. Jacob Rees-Mogg has hinted he will once again vote against the Prime Minister's deal following a cryptic message on Twitter. The chair of the influential European research group wrote, "Parliament versus the people," in response to an article condemning the government's handling of the Brexit process. Historian David Starkey wrote in the Daily Mail, "Ruled by comfortable, smug elites, Parliament is choosing to ignore the ordinary British people as they attempt to hold power to account." 12:20 p.m. Update. Latvia will agree to Article 50 extension. Latvia will agree to an extension of Article 50, its foreign minister has stated ahead of the European Council summit this week. Edgars Rinkēvičs insisted there would need to be a very clear plan from the UK in place if the delay was long-term. He told Sky News, "My own government is going to discuss this issue next Tuesday, in preparation for a Thursday and Friday European Council. What is important, of course, is that there is clarity by Thursday from the UK government. If there is a request for an extension, I personally would advise my government to vote in the European Council for extension. If there is a long-term extension." 11:55 a.m. Update. EU election farce. UK facing European vote in mockery of democracy. Britain is at risk of making a mockery of democracy, as the prospect of the UK taking part in the upcoming European Parliament elections increases amid the continued Brexit stalemate, with no sign of a majority forthcoming in the House of Commons and just 12 days until the UK is set to leave the EU. A lengthy extension to Article 50 is expected. The indication is a 3-month delay will be the most likely outcome, which will force voters in the UK to cast their ballot papers in the upcoming May election, despite voting to leave the bloc more than 3 years ago. In the 2016 EU referendum, the Electoral Commission has already outlined a set of guidelines for the upcoming vote, which states, on May 23, 2019, voters in the United Kingdom will cast the ballot to elect 73 members of the European Parliament, the Sunday Telegraph has revealed. Read more here. EU election farce. UK facing European vote in mockery of democracy. Brexit news. Nigel Farage may have to stand in the European Parliament election in May. Image Getty. Brexit news. Philip Hammond has cast doubt over the third meaningful vote. Image AFP. Getty. 11:15 a.m. Update. Hammond reveals Brexit vote not definitely happening this week. Philip Hammond has cast doubt over whether the third meaningful vote will happen, after stating it's not definitely going to be this week. The Chancellor insists the government will only hold another vote if it is confident it will pass and gains the support of the DUP. Mr. Hammond was also encouraged by the number of high-profile Eurosceptics who have now thrown the weight behind the current withdrawal agreement. He told BBC One's Andrew Marsh, "We will only bring the deal back if we are confident that enough of our colleagues and the DUP are prepared to support is so that we can get it through Parliament. We are not just going to keep presenting it if we haven't moved the dial." But what has happened since last Tuesday is that a significant number of colleagues, including some very prominent ones who have gone public, have changed their view on this and decided that the alternatives are so unpalatable to them that they, on reflection, think that the Prime Minister's deal is the best way to deliver Brexit. He acknowledged the numbers. "We're not there yet and it was a work in progress," Mr. Hammond added. "Clearly, if we don't get this deal through, we are almost certainly going to have to fight a European parliamentary election, almost certainly going to have a longer extension, almost certainly not going to be able to gain access to the fiscal headroom I talked about in The spring statement, 10:15 a.m. update, Labour to table no confidence motion if meaningful vote defeated again. Labour is ready to table another motion of no confidence in the government if Theresa May's Brexit deal is defeated for the third time this week. Jeremy Corbyn said the prospect of another vote of Mrs May's withdrawal agreement was ridiculous after it has already been defeated comprehensively. Mr Corbyn told Sky News, the government is apparently going to bring its proposals once again to Parliament this week. I suspect they'll be defeated again. The whole process they're doing is running down the clock, he added. I think at that point a confidence motion would be appropriate. At that point we should say there has to be a general election. The Labour leader also reiterated the party would not support the blindfold Brexit as it would do enormous damage to our economy. However, he indicated Labour could back an amendment pushed by backbench MPs Peter Kyle and Phil Wilson, which could allow a deal to pass the Commons, on the condition it is put to a referendum. He said, "We have obviously got to see the wording of it." Asked if he was enthusiastic about a referendum, Mr Corbyn said, "I'm enthusiastic about getting a deal with Europe which guarantees our future trading relationship and protects job and industries in this country. I do think people should have a choice on that." Brexit news, Labour to table another vote of confidence in the government if Brexit vote losses. Image, Sky News. Brexit news, Liam Fox says the vote will happen if the government is confident of winning. Image, Sky News, 9:55 a.m. update, Fox issues warning to MPs voting against deal, actions have consequences. Liam Fox has issued a warning to MPs who fail to back the Prime Minister's Brexit deal, stating their actions have consequences. The International Trade Secretary instructed parliamentarians on Sky News, "We need to back the Prime Minister's deal because there is no other deal on offer." Mr Fox also indicated Mrs May might not hold another vote on her Brexit deal this week if she is on course to another defeat. He said, "That would be determined by whether we can succeed in getting that vote through the House of Commons." He added it would be difficult to justify having a vote if you knew we were going to lose it. Brexit news, Esther McVey is to back the Prime Minister's Brexit deal. Image, Sky News, 9:30 a.m. update, McVey will now support PM's deal. The rules have all changed. Esther McVey has announced a major U-turn and will now back the Prime Minister deal this week in the third meaningful vote. The former Work and Pensions Secretary who resigned from cabinet in protest at Mrs May's Brexit deal, told Sky News she will now support the withdrawal agreement because the rules have all changed. Ms McVey also suggested Mrs May should consider setting out the timetable for her departure in order to win over other rebels. She said told Sophie Ridge on Sunday she will have to think about that herself. She has got to look at the fact, when collective responsibility collapses like that, who is the voice of government? The government should only have one voice so the country knows what we stand for, so the world knows what we stand for, she added. Mrs May's cabinet was making her position very dubious. 8:45 a.m. update, May says having Britain in EU election doesn't bear thinking about. May issued a rallying cry over her Brexit deal today, the Prime Minister told the Sunday Telegraph. If the proposal were to go back to square one and negotiate a new deal, that would mean a much longer extension, almost certainly requiring the United Kingdom to participate in the European Parliament elections in May. The idea of the British people going to the polls to elect MEPs 3 years after voting to leave the EU hardly bears thinking about. There could be no more potent symbol of Parliament's collective political failure. All this makes the choice now facing MPs clearer than it has ever been. If Parliament can find a way to back the Brexit deal before European Council, the UK will leave the EU this spring, without having to take part in the European elections. And we can get on with building a future relationship with the EU. If it cannot, we will not leave the EU for many months, if ever.